Hi guys, I'm Zockley and welcome to this tutorial video on using the PlayStation controller in Space Engineers. Now, before we get started with the PlayStation controls, I would like to mention that you can always plug in a mouse and keyboard into your PlayStation and use that actually with the PlayStation version. So if I actually press a button on the keyboard here, you'll see how it switches back to the classic PC layout, which can be used. But as soon as I press a button on the controller, it will switch back to that console-focused version of the UI. So, on the top left of this video, you can see that we have a PlayStation controller overlay just to help you see exactly what I'm pressing as we go through the tutorial. And that is the PS5 controller, but the controls are the same for the PS4 and the PS5, so that's okay. Now, if you ever forget any controls at any point, you can always use the options button and then press triangle to show the help. And now this will show you the various help videos, but also as we flick down, we see the kind of mouse and keyboard controls. And we keep going down here, we can actually see the layout here for the PlayStation controller and showing you the kind of basic controls here. And then by moving down one more with a D-pad, we can actually see the advanced controls. And this is pretty much every combination, key combination you can ever need to play Space Engineers. So even if you're a more experienced player and you forget a certain combination, you can always come in here and refresh your memory in the help screens. That's always good to know. So that's the options button plus triangle. So if we back out of this now with the circle here, and once again, come back into the game and let's begin. So with the left stick, of course, we have forwards, left, right, and back movement, and we can use the right analog stick for looking around. So that's pretty straightforward. Now we can control the movement of our character by gradually moving the left stick around, so you can kind of switch between walking and running. Now, we can use the X or cross for jumping, circle for crouching, circle again for the toggle there, and the next key part of the character control is actually the jetpack, and that comes with its own set of controls actually. So if we use the triangle button now, we can activate our jetpack. In the bottom left, you should see the little jetpack icon lights up. And with that, we use X to ascend, circle to descend. And one of the key things about the movement here, which is different to normal walking, is we're going to press L1 to switch between panning and actually rolling here. So now we can hold down L1 and actually move the right analog stick to control our jetpack roll. So to be able to access all the various controls and mechanics that we have in Space Engineers, there is a heavy use of modifiers with the controllers. So an example of that is actually switching here to the third person view, and we can do that by pressing the R1 and then our up arrow on the D-pads, and you can see the icon there, and now we can see our engineer in third person, which can be very useful. And while we're in jetpack, there's actually one other thing that I would like to mention, and that is inertial dampeners. So by pressing L1 and then triangle, we can actually disable or enable these dampeners. And as you can see now, I'm drifting. The only way to return is to actually actively thrust in the direction that I kind of came from here to slow down. So it's not automatic. It kind of involves some manual work to stay on course. And of course, this can be useful in certain situations, but normally in jetpack, you probably spend most of the time with the dampeners on here. So I'm going to press again L1 triangle to turn those on to have a much easier control of my character's jetpack here. So once we've kind of had enough flying around. We can come back down here and press triangle. And as we were in artificial gravity, we will actually land back on the platform here. So the biggest difference between the PlayStation controller controls versus the mouse and keyboard controls are the radial menus. And there's a number of them in the game. And the first one is on my left, and we've already kind of seen it used for the third person here. And we can, using the D-pad on this first page, we can actually switch between the different tools we have. There's the drill, the welder, the grinder, and the pistol as well here. So we can access all of those. And pressing L1 and R1, I already showed that for the spectator mode, for the third person mode, but also we can see some other functionality here. So if I press L1, we have the toolbar toggle, so we can press L1 right on the D-pad, and that will disable the toolbar for a more cinematic experience, but it's worth noting you should remember that one before turning it off, so yeah, you know what's going on. So again, that's L1 plus the right D-pad button. That brings that back up. We also have L1 down to bring up the chat window. We have L1 left D-pad to show the progression tree, and L1 up arrow for the contract screen, which will you'll come into use later in your gameplay. On the other page, by pressing R1, we have the third person, which we've gone over on the top. On the right, we have the headlight here, and you can actually see it being toggled on and off. It's quite useful in the darker areas out in the void of space. So we can toggle that on and off. And at the bottom, we have the color picker. And this is obviously very important when it comes to designing your ships. And you can come in here using the D-pad or the left analog stick to kind of switch between the colors here. So I can select the blue. And this is also where you would select skins as well. So we can come back to this later. So we'll press circle to close that off. And by opening that, we now have the color and skin picker on our radial menu here. And by using the D-pad here, we can actually switch between the different skins with the left and right, and the colors with the up and down. So it's quite a useful panel when you'll want to quickly switch between the different colors. And coming back now to the R1 page of this radial menu, we also have on the left, we have the toggling the helmet visor, which I would not advise doing in space. So we're going to leave that closed for now, but just so you know, when you're in a pressurized environment or on planets, you can use that to open your visor and breathe the fresh air. So we'll leave that closed for now, but that's the main thing with the R1 radial menu. So next up, we have our second main radial menu, and we access that by pressing left stick here. So we press left stick, and this will bring up the block selection screen, and we can switch between the various tabs or pages of the blocks, the triggers. L2, R2, you can switch. You have armor blocks, production, logistics, all kinds of blocks here, and kind of finishing there with the decorative blocks for really adding the final touches to your ships. The first page of this radial menu is actually the most recent blocks that you use. So for this demonstration here, we can use the left analog stick for spinning around these blocks. And then we're going to actually stop here on the light armor block, which is the most common building block. So once we're happy with that, we can then press R1 to select that block. And we come out of that screen. And now we can actually see the preview of that armor block. And to place that down, we can press right trigger. There we go. So right trigger to place blocks, and left trigger to delete blocks there. So there we go. Now, this video is just about the basic controls, and just the controls to help you get started and try out some different parts of the game. There will be more in-depth building video after this. So we won't get into too much building now, but there's a lot to building, of course. I also tend to build in first person, and to do that, again, we want to switch with the R1 and then the up arrow to switch back there. And it's normally easier to build in first person, so there's another tip for you there. Now, you may want to empty your hands to get rid of this preview. And again, to do that, we're going to open up the block selection screen with the left stick press. And in the very middle, we have the empty hands. So we're just going to basically hit R1 to confirm. And now we have nothing in our hands, and we don't have that preview showing up anymore. When you get started in Space Engineers, you're actually greeted in the main menu when you click New Game with a bunch of starter worlds, which already have some stations, some ships inside, so you can jump in straight away and actually have some fun and fly those. So I think that leads us to the next stage of this tutorial, where we're going to go over some of the ship controls. So let's actually come over to this blue fighter over here. And once we get close, we're going to aim at the cockpit and press square to enter the cockpit. Now, the controls are similar to the jetpack controls, so we can use X or cross for going up, ascending, and circle for descending here. And then the left analog stick for movement, and I'm also moving the right analog stick for panning. And you can press the L1 button, like in the jetpack, to switch between rolling and panning here. So as you can see, that's quite similar. Now, there's one other thing in regards to the controls, which is like the jetpack, and that is the dampeners. So I'm first going to switch to third person, and that is the same. We're going to press R1 and then up on the D-pad. So now we're in third person. I'm going to show this last thing, which is like the jetpack controls, and that is the dampeners. So by pressing L1 and triangle, we can actually turn off the dampeners here. And this is useful for saving fuel, because what I can do is here, I can accelerate in a direction, and I will just keep going now forever. And this can be really useful because it won't actually slow down at all. So you can normally set a direction and drift, and then maybe when you get to your destination, you can then use L1 and triangle, turn on the dampeners, and that way you're not always thrusting, using fuel to fly there. So it can be quite efficient, but you want to definitely be aware of when they are on or off. So that's the dampeners. Now, the pages on the toolbar are a little different when flying a ship. So this has been set up already, as it's a preset fighter, but we can see here by going on the up arrow, we have Gatling. Left arrow, we've got rocket launcher. The right arrow, we have toggling off the antenna. You can see the fighter antenna disappearing and turning on there. And the last one actually isn't set up yet. It can be set up to have other controls of the ship's functions. There's another thing that you might see there, and that is this way to actually switch between the pages of the toolbar to have even more possibilities when controlling a ship. So for that, we're going to press the left stick and X, and there, actually right now we're on the first page, so we can't do that, but if we press the left stick and circle, now we have an empty page there. There's nothing there, but if we keep going, there's just more and more pages here, and we can actually continue to add stuff to this toolbar when setting up. This could be controlling subsystems, this could be enabling jump drives, all kinds of possibilities there for controlling a ship with that toolbar with the gamepad. So just for fun here, we can fire off some weapons. Let's do up arrow and then hold down the right trigger, and we can fire off the Gatlings here. So you're going to come back here to first person. We can go to rockets on the left D-pad. Nice, nice, nice. So there's a quick weapons demonstration there. A lot more combat stuff can be found in the game later on. And when you've had enough time flying and you want to come back and land here, you can just come over to this platform again where we started. And use the circle button to descend. And then once we're just about the right place, we can hit square and X the cockpit. And we actually turn off the jetpack, and with triangle, now we're walking once again on the platform. So that just is some basic controls for the small grid. And some of the alternatives to actually memorizing all of these various toggles and modifiers is by pressing the right analog stick. And this brings up another menu, and this is the other tools that we have in Space Engineers. We can see we have the first person mode toggle, we have the dampeners there, the light, toolbar. It's all here in this right analog stick. Other things is for making blueprints when you have builds that you are really happy with, or you want to paste in a preset blueprint. We have chat, we have admin menus, all kinds of things, respawn options. So this is all the other functionality which is kind of not related to blocks, block placement. So we'll come out of this screen for now. And now we're going to actually go aboard the red ship and have a look at some other controls. So the next thing is showing interactions with large blocks like this, and it's just like the cockpit. We can press square to change these things, interact with them. Pressing square, we can see we're actually opening and closing this door here. So we're going to run through this large ship. Okay. And we're going to, this is actually the rear control. We're going to run to the front for a better view. Okay, so entering the flight seat with square, and it's a pretty good view, but I'm actually going to switch to third person with R1 up, arrow, there we go. So it doesn't fly like the small fighter, that's for sure. Definitely, it feels like a big ship. This is big red here, but the controls are the same, you know, like the analog sticks, the toolbar, and all of the controls are actually exactly the same. Of course, there are some different things on the toolbar that have been set up on this ship that we can actually flick between. You can see there's ways to close the hangar doors, turning off beacons and so on. So this one actually has already set up multiple pages for controlling various things on the ship here. So that kind of shows real quick the some of the large ship controls, but it's very similar. And another one of the important screens that we have in Space Engineers is the terminal screen. And all blocks that have this kind of pad here have it, and you know, most things that have this blue screen indicate that there's a terminal access here. So we can come up to this and we can press L1 plus R1 plus the touchpad on the controller, and this will bring up the terminal. And there's a lot to see and do in here. We can toggle between the various tabs and systems here. So we have a production tab here, but this ship doesn't actually have any at this time. We can see ship information, and that's the kind of key mechanics there. And we can move around this terminal with the D-pad, but also we can go like left and right. And you can also use the left analog stick. I prefer using the D-pad for a bit more accuracy when going over these buttons. But really, the terminal is incredibly powerful. You can do so much in here. Everything from turning a block on and off to changing the color of a light, automation. There's so much to the game, and which can be controlled through this screen. So it's might seem like a lot to begin with, but you'll definitely get the hang of it with some perseverance. So, and while you're on that journey of understanding everything in this terminal screen, you can actually see at the bottom here, we have some control hints to help you toggle some of those things and control various things within this terminal screen. So I'm going to back out of this for now, hit circle, and I'm actually not controlling anything on the ship, but what I want to do is I want to actually show you how it is to what you have in this terminal screen when you're not accessing a panel of a ship, for example, or a station. So if I just press the touchpad alone, this will open up the terminal for the player, and you see it's exactly the same panels here. A lot of them won't be functional because we're not connected to any ship, like the control panel's not there, but still we have some information about ships that we have nearby. We have faction control, we have communications and GPS for waypoints and stuff, which is also really important parts of the game. And here in the first page, we can see some of the things in our personal inventory here. So we've got some magazines for our rifle. We've got hydrogen bottles, oxygen bottles, and all of this stuff is very important. Using the jetpack will burn through hydrogen in survival mode, the same with oxygen. But as we're in creative mode right now, these things don't actually get depleted, and they're just there for now. So this is a way to see our internal inventory. And again, you have lots of control hints to show you exactly how to move those around and transfer them, especially useful when you are connected to a grid, you know, to know how to move those. Or in this case, you can see you can move multiple of them to kind of transfer them quicker. So one last thing to finish today's tutorial is a bonus fun thing, and that is the emote menu. So when you're just with the character here, I'm first going to switch to third person with R1 up arrow. Now by holding L1 and R1 at the same time with the character, we can actually access this emote menu here, and we can flick between the pages with X and circle. As you can see, and some of these are locked as I don't have the DLC right now, and there'll be DLC emotes, but we have some classic ones here that we can use. And here we go. Let's try the kind of celebrate one on the left bumper there. There we go. Another thing, as you can see here, which is, but when I'm holding down the L1, R1, I'm also able to rotate around a character with the right analog stick. So holding those down, so that's also useful to know. It's the same with ships too. So you can hold down L1 and R1 and use the right stick to actually move around a character or a ship. And I can use the forward and back movement to the left stick to zoom in and out. That's also really useful for looking around a character and a ship. So that concludes the basic controls tutorial for using a PlayStation controller in Space Engineers. Now, of course, there are many more controls to learn related to specific systems and mechanics in the game, but this video should help you on that journey to become a great engineer. Until the next one, see ya!